Now we're doing the review for 6.6, and we're using half-angle formulas, and the cosine of theta over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 plus the cosine of theta in the numerator and 2 in the denominator. So 22.5 degrees is half of 45 degrees. So this is going to equal, and 22.5 is in the first quadrant, so it's going to be positive. And so we have 2 down here, 1 plus, and the cosine of 45 degrees is root 2 over 2 when we rationalize the denominator. So this equals, I better print larger, square root of, when we, common denominator is 2, so I get 2 plus root 2 over 2 all over this 2 here, which equals square root of, and when we invert and multiply, we get plus root 2 over, invert and multiply, that's going to be 4, which equals, and the square root of 4 is 2, so that's just going to be the square root of 2 plus root 2 all over 2. And we've got it, we're done. Now we're doing 1b, and we've got to find the tangent of 7 pi over 8. Well, the tangent of theta over 2 equals, there's 3 identities. One of them is sine theta over 1 plus cosine of theta. And 7 pi over 8 equates to 1/2 of 7 pi over 4. So if theta is over 2 is 7 pi over 8, then theta will be 7 pi over 4. So this equals the sine, and by the way, 7 pi over 4, let's locate that. There's pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4 right there. So it's in the fourth quadrant. Sine is negative in that quadrant, and that's going to be negative root 2 over 2 divided by 1 plus, and cosine of, in the fourth quadrant, is positive root 2 over 2. Well, we've got to clean this up. So this is going to equal root 2 over 2 divided by adding fractions. We get 2 plus, common denominator is 2 over 2. Invert and multiply, and that's going to be negative times root 2 over 2 times 2 over 2 plus root 2. So these divide out, and now we're going to erase a few things here so we have room to work. And this equals minus root 2 over 2 plus root 2. And I'm going to simplify this farther, and I've got to get rid of this radical in the denominator, so we'll multiply by 1 in the form of 2 minus root 2 and use the difference of 2 squares theorem, 2 minus root 2. And now when we do that, we have minus root 2 times 2 minus root 2, And downstairs, difference of two squares theorem, we're going to square the first term, and that's 4, square the second one, and squaring root 2 we get 2, and separate them by a negative. Now, so downstairs we have a 2, and now let's distribute this root 2, and negative root 2 times negative root 2 is positive 2, and negative root 2 times 2 is negative 2 root 2. And now the 2's will divide out, so I get 2 times 1 minus root 2 all over 2, and these 2's divide out, and we get 1 minus root 2. There's a lot there, but it's a good refresher, very good problem to practice.